Gemini, this is your week ahead astrology forecast by Astrology Motivation from Born Without Boundaries. In these weekly videos, I review the major planetary aspects and transits, and I let you know how they're going to be aspecting your natal sun so that you'll know what that means for your day-to-day, for your bottom line. All you need to know to understand these videos is your birth date, because I will translate everything else for you. I'm going to start out really broad Gemini with the big stuff, the global stuff, the charts for this week. And then I'm going to move into Gemini specific information, and then I will break everything down into the 3 decans of Gemini. A decan is a group of 10 degrees. And by doing that, it'll help me to understand how everything that's going on now is impacting your natal sun, because you will not all be impacted the same way. Depending on where your natal sun is located in Gemini, you will be impacted differently. So I can estimate where that would be based on your birth dates, and we will get into that, I promise. So what's the big stuff that's going on? Well, a couple of big things already happened. And that is Mercury went into retrograde, which directly impacts you because, yes, it is your it is your ruling dignitary, and that kind of seasons your life. And so when Mercury goes into retrograde, you will definitely feel that impact. And Mercury went into retrograde on the 23rd. Also, the sun moved into Virgo on the 23rd. Mercury is in Virgo, went into retrograde in Virgo, will be in Virgo for quite some time, and then the sun moved into Virgo as well. On the 22nd, we had the sun move into opposition with Saturn. So the sun moved into Virgo in opposition to Saturn, and Mercury went into retrograde within the same 24-hour period. And Mars is in opposition to Neptune. And Mercury is actually in opposition to Neptune as well when it went into retrograde, and up until like the 26th, 27th of this week, I think, or maybe 28th of this week. That's a real slowing down. That's a real let's put the brakes on. And that could really start to trigger a lot of people, because the opposition between Mars and Neptune is very deceptive. It's something that can trigger a reactionary responses, like swinging fists at shadows. Just to feel like you're doing something, but at the same time, you'd be wasting energy. Because the truth is, I think the universe is trying to tell us there's something more that we need to know, and we haven't hit the nail on the head. We're nowhere close, and we've got to slow down and dig in instead of trying to push forward. Also this week, something else that sort of supports that hypothesis is that Mars is moving into Libra on the 27th. Mars is in detriment in Libra. Mars is the only planet that is moving direct. It's the only planet right now that isn't in shadow or in retrograde. It's the only planet moving at its normal speed, and it's going into detriment. And detriment is where the energy is most vulnerable, most awkward. And that's in Libra, because Mars in Libra, it likes to take action on 2 things at the same time, just in case. It doesn't necessarily like to land on one place, at least not quickly. And most of the action is, can we just balance things out? And the truth is, we need to balance things out. And all these fake actions are not helping us in any way, shape, or form. We need to dig in and get real information. And the Mercury retrograde and all the other retrogrades are actually going to really, really, really start to dig up that intel. We have another troublesome energy, and that's Venus square to Jupiter. Now, normally this is a very optimistic, happy, and decadent energy. But because she's also says a square to Neptune, that could imply that we're trying to overcompensate for all this frustration by overindulging in sensual pleasures. And that's anything from food to sex. So there is a sense of, where have we been overindulging, and why are we being triggered to overindulge? Because we're frustrated and we feel stuck, especially with that opposition between Saturn and the sun, which really can make you feel really oppressed and not able to be who you are, be an individual, like feeling, the feeling of oppression. So that can almost even push you into a state of not necessarily depression, but hopelessness in a way. So there's a lot going on to discourage us, but something that I find encouraging is that by the 29th, Mercury is going to be trine to Jupiter. Okay? And Mercury is going to be basically all week long trine to Uranus, which means, and Uranus is going into retrograde on the 29th. On the 29th. So that happens this week too. Uranus is going into retrograde. Mercury has just begun its retrograde. I mean, it's not that retrograde season is bad. It's just that it's bad because we compare it to what we want. Well, like it's our momentum is moving forward and suddenly everything gets put into slow motion. And we really have to dig in and learn, especially with Mercury trine Uranus. There is a lot to learn and a lot to discover based on information that we should already have or that needs to come out. Mars is also trine to Pluto, which means whatever action that's being taken, it's very profound and it's very impactful. There's a sense of once we know what to do, it's going to be intense and it's going to have permanent impact. Guys, let's go into Gemini specific energy, because I don't want to get political, but it does seem like we're entering a real turning point that could expose a lot of people's intentions, or that a lot of us for a long time maybe have been swinging in the wrong directions. Okay? Let's get into Gemini specific energy. And for this, I look at, well, what's going on in Gemini? And nothing is going on in Gemini. The moon doesn't even reach Gemini by the end of this week. So there's nothing really big happening in Gemini right now. But what's going on with Mercury? A lot. Clearly, we just discussed that. Mercury is in retrograde. It's going to retrograde from 21 degrees Virgo to 20 degrees Virgo this week. It is going to be trine to Jupiter and trine to Uranus and quincunx to Chiron. And it's going to be in opposition to Neptune, which can be very foggy and very deceptive energy, leaving us vulnerable and easily fooled through the 28th. But what I think is going to happen ultimately by the end of this week, especially by that full moon, and we have to talk about this full moon. It's a full moon in Pisces that's conjunct to Saturn. And that could reveal a lot of intentions that have harmed or oppressed a lot of individuality, or kind of trigger us to rebel against the expected, especially when it comes from parents, pressures from parents, because the moon and Saturn are going to be conjunct as it opposes the sun. So this sense of what has been expected and dictated versus moving forward, what we really need and what really needs to get done. So by the 28th, I took all of these things that are happening to Mercury in consideration, and what I came up with was truth serum. Because it's trine Jupiter and trine Uranus and quincunx to Chiron. So there is this energy of, with quincunx to Chiron, Mercury can feel really almost like people have said things to you that just won't leave you alone. They keep nagging you. And then the trine to Jupiter is these words would get bigger and bigger. And this trine to Uranus is all of a sudden we would understand their meaning, or understand how to think outside the box and what to do differently. So there is this sense of being triggered left and right by the feelings of oppression and inadequacy, to really come out with this huge sort of statement of revolution, rebellion, or just discovery. That's Mercury. Let's get into the decans of Gemini, shall we? Okay. If you know that your natal sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Gemini, then it is in the first decan of Gemini, and you are Gemini 1s. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably because you don't have your natal chart, and that's fine. This correlates to Gemini birthdays basically in May. May 22nd through, say, the 1st of June would be May Geminis. And when I say cuspers, I mean Taurus Gemini cusps. So that would be May 21st, 22nd, 23rd. If you're a Gemini on one of those, you are a Taurus Gemini cusp, but you're still Gemini. So ultimately, you guys are Gemini 1. Holy crap. Your natal suns are square to the sun and square to Saturn, which means that your natal suns are also square to the full moon. There is a lot of triggering that's going to be happening for you on the full moon, especially when it comes to laws, rules, regulations, and feeling how you have been personally set upon or restricted. There is a trine to Mars, which means suddenly there is an understanding of decisions you have to make or actions you have to take. Cusps, you're going to be trine to Mars all week long. All the rest of you, I would say by the 27th, you will all be trine to Mars, at least loosely. And by the full moon, all of you will be at least in a loose trine to Mars. But especially those of you born around the cusp, say anyone born between the 21st, if you were born on the 21st, through, say, the 24th or 25th of May, this is going to strongly impact you this full moon, especially with regards to forcing you to kind of face off against somebody or a group of somebodies who has made you kind of try to keep you under wing and continue to treat you like a child, or rules, laws, regulations that just don't work out. This is information having to basically face off against status quo. Gemini. If your natal suns are between 10 and 19 degrees Gemini, they're in the second decan of Gemini, and you are Gemini 2s. This correlates to Gemini birthdays between June 2nd and the 11th. So you guys are sextile to Venus in retrograde, which means there's a lot of optimism here, and there's a lot of beauty, and there's a lot of charm, especially with things that are retrospective. But you're also within 30 degrees of Jupiter, which means you could be a little bit being triggered by wanting more, a need for excess, a desire for more. And then you're also sextile to Chiron, which means you are inspired by the shit you've been through to find opportunities to make change and to help others. And then semi-square to the North Node would mean that you're being triggered by duties and responsibilities, basically by growing up, and the consciousness and awareness that you're starting to come into, which is changing your perspective on what matters and what you value. So there could be a whole different way of using your resources and your optimism this week. But it's definitely sort of a kind of a, your natal suns are going to be semi-square to the North Node for the next couple of months, 4 months, 5 months. This sextile to Venus in retrograde will only last for the rest of this week, maybe into next. This sextile to Chiron is long-term. What's really impacting you this week is the sextile to Venus and the positioning to Jupiter within 25 to 35 degrees of Jupiter, basically really optimistic and happy energy, but could also be kind of making you hyper romantic, hypersensitive, and hyper rose-colored glasses. Though this does say that there is opportunity here, especially with value. Out of all of Geminis, I think you guys are going to have the best week. Yeah, because there's, at the very least, because there's so much optimism here and so much, I can see beauty where I haven't seen it before. I can see value where I haven't seen it before, and maybe I even have the resources and it to enable me to act out and do new things and do different things. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Gemini 3s. If you know that your natal sun is between 20 and 29 degrees Gemini, it's in the third decan of Gemini. So Gemini 3s, Your birthdays would correlate to, say, June 12th through June 22nd, though June 22nd is usually the beginning of Cancer season, but some of you still may have been born on June 22nd as well, depending on where the sun was at that time of day. So your natal suns are square to Mercury, which is your ruling dignitary, which can deliver mind blockages, or it will make Mercury retrograde super intense for you. Let's put it that way. There will be a lot of hiccups, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of stuff going wrong with your phone, or popped tires, or just it will be Mercury retrograde making major challenges for you this week. So this is, please don't sign any important papers or contracts or take any important tests. Not a good time to really interview. It's more of a time to dig down and research and prepare. Your natal suns are within 30 degrees of Uranus, and ultimately this is an energy of wanting, like being almost your own independence or need for individuality nagging you. And that could also be getting in the way of you being able to communicate officially with somebody, like especially like on an interview or something. Like, I don't want to be bothered with this right now. I don't have the patience for it. We have long-term, for the next couple of months, sextile to the North Node, which means finding opportunity in your future and in stepping into your discomfort zone by stepping into your own sense of independence, individuality, and your own personal authority and responsibility, since the North Node is now in Aries. There's a long-term square to Neptune, which will be very triggered this week since Neptune is so active. It might be extra difficult for you to see clearly and extra easy for people to distract you. That this could be very creative energy, but with all the other oppositions that Neptune is experiencing right now, I would say creative to the point of distraction. And so this is also a sense of, you may just need to put yourself near some water. You may just need to let yourself zone out, because ultimately there will be more challenges for distraction for you. You have a long-term quincunx to Pluto, which means that you are being egged on to change. You feel the change coming, or you are the change, and you are bringing the change to people, and it's really being a pain in the ass to them, but you know, it's what they need. But there will be a lot of dissonance with regards to you because of it. And then we have a trine to the South Node, which is comfort in your comfort zone, peace and tranquility, knowing what you're good at and knowing where you came from and not having any qualms with it at all. Also, since the South Node is in Libra, this could also be a really supportive partnership, knowing that you don't even have to pay that much attention to it because it's there and it's cool. But also, you may run the risk of losing track of it and almost taking advantage of it. So just be aware of that as well. This is a tricky week for you. It's like you're walking through landmines. And I think that that's just sort of the case. So if you can, keep your head low, keep your head buried into discovery and learning and understanding and knowing and allowing yourself to be creative and have an outlet for that, as well as definitely self-care and meditation. It will be a challenging week for you. Absolutely. You let me know in the comments below exactly how this energy is challenging you guys. And if you love this video, please be sure to like it and share it so that other people can discover it as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you aren't subscribed already, so that we can grow over here. And then come on over to Born Without Boundaries Tarot for your week ahead tarot card message. I love you guys, and I'll see you there.